about the ground planner. And firstly, I'm going to introduce the adjudicators in the ground planner. DC は、小島真央と山本大地さんです。低い高い、はい。ゆりこの上。はい。DC は安定の入っております。はい。それで、広人さん from ICU only。低い高いでごめんなさい。読み間違えました。すみません。ごめんなさい。検診中原 KD です。
ちょっと、何て書いたの？One thing I really want to say is I didn't write absolutely.
両早川 from KDS。そのまま読むと、大物に老害がいて安心しました。たくさんいるとうざいけど、一人もいないとちょっと寂しい格好かもしれない。それが老害。はい、じゃあ始めます。The motion is like this has made that parents and educators should actively encourage children to invest in their physical appearance and attractiveness. So I got a card from the Prime Minister, Shieto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We think this debate is about which is better for children, and from the perspective of parents and educators, what kind of action they should take. We think this debate should be about those kind of issues. The burden of proof of today's proposition is why the actively encouragement is actually fitting the role of the parents and educators. What we suppose from today's opposition to defend this debate is like non-active encouragement or certain sorts of encouragement or prioritization, other kinds of prioritization in terms of encouragement. That's the paradigm we have to support in this debate. Based on that, I'm going to talk about two issues in my speech. Number one, what are the expected role of the parents and educators in this scenario? We say they should actually enhance the basic ground so that these kind of children can utilize their ability, their knowledge to move to the next step in society. Secondly, about what is actually happening because we do not actually encourage and how actually we can rectify that by taking this motion. But before let's set up this model. We think this debate is about value judgment, and what do we mean by the active encouragement is that we're going to emphasize it so strong. For example, you must do these kind of things, or you're going to say that you have to do these kind of things, you have to prioritize these kind of things over other values. For example, academy, sports, or those kind of things. We are with the type of the physical appearance and attractiveness we are talking about is, for example, you should use cosmetic products, or you should actually take care of your hairstyle. We are not talking, for example, white colored people are superior than black people. Do you think that kind of issues are completely different? We're talking about you should be conscious about your physical appearance and attractiveness. For example, you should train your muscles or those kind of things. We think in this kind of scenario, we're going to more than happy to teach these kind of things. For example, school, classes, at home, or the kind of things. But we don't think it's our exact burden to actually prove what kind of things we're going to do. We're more than happy to do every kind of efforts we can do from our side of the house. So having clarified the model, we suppose from our side of the house, moving on to the first issue, what is the expected role of the parents and educators? We think for the role of the parents and educators, which I mean, for example, in other words, teachers, is actually work to actually fill in the knowledge which that children cannot get by themselves. Why? Because the children themselves have never been to society simply. They are incapable of knowing what is important in society or what is the prerequisite condition you have to do to actually for you yourself to identify, for example, for you yourself to move into society or those kind of things. Because in that kind of scenario, comparatively, parents and educators know the reality of society. They have went through the same educational process. They have went through, for example, the graduation of university, or for example, they work at a job place. They know the reality of society. In that kind of scenario, we say the parents and educators are a suitable actor to fill in what is the failure of what the children can achieve by themselves. Given that, what kind of problem we see in the status quo from two levels of analysis, but before that,
Okay, in a misogynic society, do you think that parents should actively teach their children to become or conform to feminine norms in society?
I don't think misogynic norm actually completely doesn't exist in is completely irrelevant. We have to reason assume the reasonable context in the liberal democratic country, for example, Japan in 1960. We can't narrow down the debate as opening opposition intent to. So what are the problems we see under the status quo? Because these kind of things are not actively taught. They are children that do not know the importance of these kind of things. Or even if they know, there's a difference in terms of the moment they know. Some people know, some children know that the importance of beauty or those kind of things at 10. Some people know at 20 or those kind of things. We say that these kind of lacking of the accessibility to these kind of information is extremely harmful because it does not create the concept or the value judgment on that individual mind that these kind of things is important or those kind of things. Or moreover, we say if we do not actively teach that it depends on the children to what to prioritize at the very beginning. In that scenario, we see a huge problem of not actively teaching those kind of scenarios. Given that, what is the actual harm of what we see under the status quo? Because no matter how much you study, no matter how much academic ability you have, or academic knowledge you have, we have to recognize the prerequisite condition in the society to a certain extent is your physical ability or physical attractiveness at the very beginning. What do I mean by that? From two levels analysis. Number one, your impression or your visual creates your first impression from other people at the very beginning. What you are, for example, if there are two people with same ability, there are a beautiful woman and a not beautiful woman. I'm not offensive, but in that scenario, most of the people actually prioritize to talk to beautiful women at that scenario, recognizing that no matter how much effort they make in high school, university, elementary school, their effort is going to be in vain because simply they have not have a chance to know the importance of beauty or those kinds of things. But secondly, more important, in terms of job applicants, we say it's extremely harmful. Simply, the corporation has an incentive to actually employ people who's going to be profitable. For example, people who can make the most sales for them at that scenario. In that scenario, we have to recognize, given that how the society recognizes the beautiful woman and the not beautiful woman, we have to recognize that these kind of individuals is going to suffer under the status quo, no matter how much effort you make. Which means your youth, your time and the money you dedicated in your high school time or your university time is completely going to be in vain. In that scenario, we see the clear harm of having clarified the status quo, moving on to third issue about how we can rectify that after we take this plan. We say, for example, like for that individual to actually, for example, like sophisticate or actually foster that physical ability and actually foster the academic ability is not mutually exclusive. These kind of individuals could do the both. It simply it takes only 10 or 20 minutes to actually make up, or for example, only 1 hour to actually read the magazine or what kind of hairstyle is popular or what kind of beautiness is popular. In that scenario, we have to recognize that these kind of individuals can actually not only, for example, sophisticate or foster their academic ability, but actually foster their beautiness or those kind of things. They could take care of the haircut. They could take care of what they wear or what kind of cosmetic product is good for them in a long time, or that does not damage your skin or those kind of things. What is the beauty of this argumentation? We say that their effort of that individual is not going to be in vain. It's going to be practically being realized in the society at the rate. At least under our paradigm, the children have the chance to know about the concept, which is the primary concept and one of the most important concepts which is recognized in the society at the rate, which actually leads to that individual happiness and which really consequently leads to the individual, the most efficient use of that individual liberty, individual time they dedicated in the use of those kind of things. Recognizing that when the parents and educators are the only actor that can tell the children what is important in society and what is best for the children, we have to say that the active encouragement is extremely important for all these reasons. We're immensely proud to propose.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I would like to call on Leader Opposition.
Prime Minister said the education entity should teach what children cannot recognize. We totally agree with that. But the problem of opening government case is that children cannot recognize appearance doesn't matter. The children always prioritize the beauty person. People, for example, in the case of Hitotsubashi University, Keio, Waseda, private university, all person in the society recognizes appearance doesn't matter. But we think that the educational factor have to counter that idea, because educational factor should be the one who counters the settlement and chase the ideal world and just stand from open opposition. Society which evaluates people by appearance sucks. We think we have to end the situation by the educational entity. So that's why we're more than happy to support it under successful situations. For example, ban making up in high school, or that they are disincentivize students to conduct excessive diet because it's bad. Well, we are more than happy to make students have confidence on their appearance, but we are more than happy to oppose the idea, because they are going to say appearance is extremely supreme in the community. We think this is extremely harmful. We are going to give you two arguments. First, I want to talk about why educational entities have to chase ideal world and why this applies to the supremacy of appearance. Second, I want to talk about why this policy is rather harmful, because children cannot take their own individual choice. So let's see the case from opening government first of all. There is a huge concession from government, opening government, because they accept about, for example, whiteness and blackness. We think this is a huge concession, because they have already agreed with that. We should not distinguish the people by the skin of color. We think same principle applies to this, because people should not evaluate people by appearance, because appearance doesn't matter your ability. We think that people should be evaluated by ability in the first place. Then this is the children can recognize the importance of beauty. We think this is totally not true, because people have natural incentive to evaluate the beauty, and it's going to have a compensation for the beautiful women. We think this is totally applies to the children, because there is the notion that appearance matters in the society. For example, there is celebrities, and there's a beautiful celebrity in the media, and you are going to think beauty is necessary. Well, the children, especially children, have a natural incentive to think the beauty or appearance matters, and that's why there's many university students are making up in the current paradigm. Keio, Waseda, but we think that timetable at University of Tokyo is minority. First, I want to talk about why the school has to chase the ideal world. We think that appearance doesn't matter, and even though this matters, we think that the society or the educational entity have to chase ideal world, because people should be evaluated and who you are and what you do and the ability of your individual. That's why we think it's bad to distinguish the people or discriminate people by appearance. For example, job interview, as opening government pointed out. No, thank you. Well, educational entity should chase ideal world, because this is the only entity that can counter the notion, because the society has a natural incentive to deny the ideal world, and this is extremely difficult to chase the ideal notion in the society. It's extremely difficult so that's why we think in the current pattern, for example, Japanese government said, well, we have to chase the peace by demilitarization even if it's ideal world. For example, Japanese or many liberal democratic society teach the children, we have to have we have to be honest every time, even if it's ideal war. Why is that? Because it's extremely difficult to chase the ideal identity and ideal notion in the society, because society is more complicated, as they have said. Society is severe. That's why it's extremely difficult to chase ideal action. That's why the states or the education actor have to encounter that in the first place. So what is the problem by taking this policy? In the current paradigm, even if we try to mitigate this notion in the current paradigm, the children has a natural incentive to care and appearance in the first place. So the conclusion in the current paradigm is that there are many children who cares their appearance and who think appearance matters. That's why many children take your picture of faces and upload them in the SNS for how about my picture and please tell me whether this is cute or not, because they always cares appearance in the current paradigm. Many children conduct excessive diet. We think it's extremely harmful and mentally unstable. We think that even in the current paradigm, we have already mitigated the situation, even if there is a harm in the current paradigm. Or there are many cases which is existence of bullying by appearance. Ugly children has more possibility. I'm not offensive to the ugly person, but the ugly children has a possibility to be bullied in for example, elementary school or junior high school, because people hate or people have a stigma on the ugly person, and that's why this bullying has a possibility to be conducted. If we take a policy, their policy pushes the situation. More children has a possibility to worry about appearance. More children believe that appearance matters. We think it's extremely harmful, because people always cares about their appearance, you always took your picture and uploaded Facebook, or you have many people are going to conduct many numbers of cosmetic surgery or much number of excessive diet. We think this is extremely harmful because this concludes the this is extremely harmful. Yes.
Even though educational entity continue to create norm, people shouldn't judge others by appearance. We cannot say that norm change, which is actually better for children who might be able to avoid bullying by this proposal.
Well, we think that this is better for the children because if the children if in the current plan there is a number of children, even if it's small, there is a number of children, a number of adults who are chasing the ideal world, and this can be countered in the current pattern. No, thank you. The second argument, why this is also important because this their policy infringes the rights of children not to chase their appearance, not to chase the changing appearance. Because there is many children who do not want to care your appearance. For example, there are children who do not want to make up because these kind of some junior high school students believe that making up is to some extent a beach. I do not want to look like a beach girl. Well, there are many children who do not want to conduct diet because they want to prioritize their right to eat, etc. Or there are many children who do not want to take a cosmetic surgery, for example, in the South Korea, but they are forced to undertake cosmetic surgery, even if they want to prioritize their face which are given by your parents. We think this is extremely harmful because their policy is going to force the children to take this kind of activity in the first place. More than that, we think this is extremely harmful because beauty is not an objective one. We can calculate the person's viability because it's the objective one. We cannot calculate we think their policy is going to push one beautiness is free and one you should chase this kind of one beauty. We think it's extremely harmful because what kind of beauty which you want to chase is different from person to person. But their policy is going to push one subjective beautiness, and this is also harmful because there are other children who want to chase their own beautiness, and that's why we think this policy is utterly counterproductive. We oppose.
Thank you, in your opposition. I'd like to correct the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We say, anyway in our society, introduce capitalism, competition is going to occur. That means there are some winners and there are some losers. In that sense, we think that it's better to maximize the opportunity to win that competition in the first place. We think the physical appearance is the important metric, one of metric to decide which people should be taken for example, at the job places, whatever. Yes, we can see ability, academic ability is important. We also tell the children you should study hard to get the academic ability. But we think it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't teach or actively encourage that physical appearance is unnecessary. We think that is also necessary and it's important. We think that's the stance from our side. Then let's examine the world which today's opposition want to support. They say they live in the idealistic world that we should not decide based on physical appearance how they can achieve that, Mr. Speaker. We think it's impossible. Anyway, there is the entertainment world. There is a model, there is an actress, there is a metric or mainstream that which is the beautiful not, Mr. Speaker. In that sense, I'm going to talk about two things. Firstly, from perspective of the parents, of educators, why from from their perspective, they can prioritize to teach, actively encourage what is the beautiful or not. Secondly, I'm going to explain how it's better to teach that what is beautiful or why it's better to encourage earlier than late. Why the beauty is also the matter of the practice or the accumulation in the so and so forth. And lastly, I'm going to comparison. Go on to my first, before that, several words. Assumption from their side is that the children is going to listen to what educators is saying. We should not adjudicate based on the appearance or so and so forth. That's assumption. No, Mr. Speaker. As I told you before, anyway, there is the entertainment world, which is broadcasted by media. The model is beautiful, actress is beautiful, or so on and so forth. Those people gain much more money than the other, for example, jobs or whatever. We think how they can prevent or disappear that the mainstream what is beautiful in our society in the first place. Also, they say that children have natural incentive to care about their beauty. That's why in the status quo there is some people who do the selfie or whatever, Mr. Speaker. Okay, if they say that, anyway, that there is the children who eventually recognize that the beauty is important, that means, Mr. Speaker, it's better to teach that beauty is necessary the earlier as much as possible, because anyway, some people recognize it, and those people take the advantage in our society when they proceed to enter the society. No, thank you. Then they say what kind of beauty should be diverse? Okay, they said that, but anyway, as I told you before, there's mainstream. How they can diversify that, pursuing the diverse beauty in the first place. We think we're generally talking about what is beautiful is that, for example, neatness or decentness, or for example, taking a haircut, or making up, or those kind of general interests, or what mainstream of our society. Go on to my first substantive from perspective parents. No, thank you. Why is it important? They should prioritize. As I told you before, and my partner told you, physical appearance is one of so important metric to decide the first impression at the job businesses, for example. Because anyway, those people can, for example, sell much more products or whatever. Because the first impression is good. It means they can easy for them to accept that people what they're saying in the first place. Because firstly, we know the general what is beautiful. Second, intrinsic nature of human nature. For Mr. Speaker, we have the intrinsic nature that beautiful person is preferable. Whatever. No, thank you. We also actively say that you should study hard, maximize the academic ability. But in order to utilize it, in order to win that competition, we think that we are also encouraged in that beautifulness in the first place. Then, because that can be advances. No, thank you. So even if somehow discrimination or whatever competition is going to occur, why we don't care that on opening government? Firstly, from perspective parents, they prioritize their children in the first place. Mr. Speaker, we think that they don't care about the other children, they don't care about the other society or the other kind of notion that those kind of cases. Because anyway, what is beauty is existing as metric. That means it's better for them to teach in order to maximize the opportunity to win and to gain that beautiness in order to win that competition by taking that criteria, Mr. Speaker. No, thank you. And second, from perspective of educator, we say it's better for educator to say that discrimination is bad, or you should not decide the people, educate the people based on physical appearance or so and so forth. But Mr. Speaker, let's examine the status quo. Because the teacher doesn't teach those kind of superficial things. Anyway, as I told you before, that some children recognize it's advantage for them to win the competition if they care about their physical appearance or so and so forth. We think from perspective educator, in order to maximize what they teach as subjects, as academic ability, we think it is better for them to maximize the opportunity, and we think that is why from two perspectives, parents and educator prioritize the active encouragement for children to make up or care about physical appearance. Yes.
So given the fact that there is existence of community entity which pushes the importance of appearance, for example, media or cosmetic industry, what is the necessity for the educators to push the extremely wrong ideas?
As I told you before, my partner told you before, actually you consider that some people didn't recognize that the beauty is so important metric when it comes to the job hunting or so on and so forth. In order to minimize the harm or lacking of that notion, we should teach or actively encourage. Please listen to my partner's speech. Go on to my second substantive. After introducing this proposal, what is better. Mr. Speaker, we think that those children easily or early recognize that beauty is somehow important. That is why they try to practice how to make up, how to care about their, like, for example, hairstyle, whatever, in order to, for example, by reading like books or like magazines and grasp what is the mainstream or what's the like beautiful in our society. And we think that is why the earliness or the childhood is important and active encouragement is important. Go on to my last substantive, comparison. They say, like, they talk about idealistic society. Yes, we support that, like, idealistic world if it's possible, but it's impossible in our society because, like, anyway, that people seek the beauty, anyway, that those entertainment will exist or those kind of things. We think in order to maximize the opportunity, in order to minimize those losers, anyway, competition is going to occur and there are winners, there are losers. We think it's better for them to teach that the beauty is metric and you should care about it. We propose.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. I'd like to call upon the third leader of opposition.
I have 3 points of clarification to begin my speech. First of all, there are diverse forms of happiness. Just becoming economically successful, for example, like entering McKinsey, like Eto-san did, and like gaining a lot of money might be one form of happiness, but that's not the only form of happiness. There are diverse forms of happiness, and although they say there are losers and winners in capitalistic society, that's only from an economical perspective. And what we say is that whether you win or lose in life is ultimately up to you and your subjectivity. But secondly, we also say that, or rather Michael Sandel said, that there are 2 forms of love in society. First of all, there's a reformative love. It's love that tries to change the other person. But there is also the sort of love that's accepting. It allows the person to be as they are. Because these 2 forms of love are mutually contradicting, we think that we can only take one or the other. We think in the particular context we're debating in, parents should be less reformative and should be more accepting, particularly considering that children are already being put in harsh societies as they are. Thirdly, the context we're currently living in is, for example, where people like upload their, particularly teenage girls, upload their faces to YouTube and ask whether I am beautiful or ugly or not. There's already an excessive norm within the society of children that emphasizes the importance of appearance and beauty. That's why we think that parents should do the exact opposite to supplement this society. Supplement the society that stigmatizes and tries to deny every single person who is not necessarily attractive. That's the stance we're taking from opening opposition. I'm going to be having 3 points in my speech. First of all, what sort of society do these children live in? I think all the debaters have been debating in university too long and have forgotten what high school or like junior high school is actually like. Because I'm younger, I'm going to remind them of what it's actually like. But secondly, what's the role of educators and parents, particularly in this particular circumstance? But thirdly, what's the short-term harm that's inflicted on these children? Because we think there's significant mental harm inflicted by this sort of education that's irreversible and often something that's extremely harmful. But before that, few points of well to opening government. Now, opening government told us that because the entire assumption of the opening government was that if you tell children to be more attractive, they're suddenly going to be able to become more attractive. But we deny that, right? Because just because you are said you should become more attractive, doesn't necessarily you can become more attractive all of a sudden. For example, like Kendo-san might seem extremely attractive, he might be extremely good on the surface. But for example, even if I want to become taller, I can't become taller. That's not something that's possible. There are fundamental, unchangeable features that confine you and confine the sorts of beauty that you can pursue in the first place. So we deny the fact, or their premise, that people can all conform to the same form of beauty that is accepted by society. And then they told us that, look, even if you have to be attractive to get a job. I'm not sure this is true, really, because because attractiveness is not the only metric in which companies select their employees. They select their employees based on like their ability, etc., etc. Like Edo-san might want to say that he's attractive enough to get into McKinsey, but I don't think that's the only metric in which McKinsey employed Edo-san. So that's enough to get on. And there are many many people, for example, in Todai, who are not necessarily physically attractive but get good jobs anyway, so I don't think this point is true. But secondly, you don't need to be extremely attractive in order to get the best, like rudimentary form of jobs to sustain your economic life. You don't need to be attractive to be a construction worker, etc., etc. We deny that this is a fundamental necessity in current society. And then they told us, they gave us an example of actresses, etc., etc. That's a completely biased example in only one example. Actresses are selling their beauty. That's why they have to be beautiful. Not all jobs sell their beauty. That's the fundamental premise that's wrong in their paradigm. And then they told us they want to maximize choice. We agree. We want to maximize choice, but choices can't always be maximized to the full extent. Sometimes you have choices that are fundamentally conflicting. We think that the types of choices that should be expanded are the choices that are deliberately cut off in the current paradigm, which we think are choices to choose not to be beautiful and to live a life that's not necessarily based on how society values you or how society views you on the surface. That's what we're pressing on our side of the house before that closing.
So you said that people should have diverse ways of happiness. But in terms of also ability, some people are good at math, some people are innately not so good at math. What is the difference between the appearance ability? Please continue.
Okay, we do agree. That's true. But the difference we're saying is that there's already an excessive natural incentive within children's society to be beautiful. That's why parents shouldn't be pressing this norm or excessively pushing this norm, but rather should be supplementing this norm because that's precisely what these children need in this circumstance. That's what we're saying. Because it's all about balance. We can't get all of it. We have to have one or the other. We're about to talk about what's the best balance considering the realistic context. So that's the first point in my speech. What sort of society do these children live in? Because we say that children live in a society that's excessively based or excessively valued based on how you physically appear. Because children aren't taught or don't understand the importance of character, which is or character or things that you have to look deeply into in order to understand. They are still immature. That's why they only see the most things on the surface. Because as they conceded, like appearance is what first comes in to your eyes. It's what breaks the first impression. And children aren't taught to go beyond that first impression. That's why children's society is already excessively based or excessively valued on how you appear. That's why, for example, cheerleaders are treated as better than, for example, math geeks in the schools. Math geeks are treated, for example, like second-class citizens in those schools, even if they're not treated like that in realistic society. So we do agree. The society that children live in and actual society are different. But the difference is that children's society puts more emphasis on attractiveness, not less. It more recognizes the importance of attractiveness more than the actual society. That's the difference. That's what we think is important. So considering this, what's the key? What should be the role of parents and educators? Because we think that parents and educators should have a supplementary role in these circumstances. Because like I said earlier, we think that parents should be allowing these children or enabling these children to have the choice of accepting yourself as you are. Because we completely disagree that the only way you can be happy is to gain a good job and be economically successful. Children can be happy even if they're not extremely economically prosperous, even if they're not necessarily completely valued by society, by still living happily on their own, doing hobbies, maybe having a family. There are all sorts of forms of happiness that can be uniquely achieved when you accept yourself as you are. When you're not forced by society, forced by your parents, or forced by other people to conform to certain norms in society and be in ways that you don't want to be inherently. Because not everybody wants to be like society wants them to be. Some people fundamentally disagree with societal norms and want to be against those norms. We don't think that parents should be taking away or deliberately depriving this choice, particularly when it's a choice that can only be provided by parents, because parents are the only people who have the incentive to accept children as they are. Educators and parents are the only people who can supplement that, and when you take away this choice, that everybody is going to be against you if you're ugly. Your parents, society, everybody's going to be condemning you. Where are these people supposed to go? We think that's extremely harmful. Finally, what are the short-term harms? We see that there's already a social phenomenon of people excessively worrying about their face, how they look, and that's why they, for example, go to excessive diets, and that's why many children are actually, for example, developing mental diseases or physical diseases because of the excessive pressure that's being put onto them. So their assumption that these people can live happily ever after just because they're suddenly become attractive or suddenly incentivized to become more attractive is fundamentally wrong, because these children might not even get ahead of their entire childhood. That's what we oppose.
It's active to read all opposition, so I move it on the browser side. I gotta come up a member of the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we believe that beauty is something that can be improved by your own effort. But we think the status quo problem is, even though the society recognizes beauty as an important factor to maximize your happiness, and although beauty is something that can be improved, especially when you are in childhood, the teachers are using this hyperbole that it doesn't matter really in the society, beauty can never be changed. And this is putting everyone like me who are not so so good looking to this despair that you cannot improve your own beauty. After going to the society, you recognize this, and we see this as a clear problem that we want to solve. So as a closing argument, I would like to explain two things in my speech. Firstly, why the most vulnerable people and the most relevant actor in the society, which is the not so good looking people, are going to be saved by taking this proposal. Secondly, why those people who choose not to invest in beauty after taking this under our paradigm is rather going to have much better life. But before moving on to my substantive couple of rebuttals against the opening opposition. So the opening opposition mainly talked about how we should accept children as they are. But we think it's false because society doesn't accept people as they are, Mr. Speaker. If you're not having a good TOEFL score, if you are coming from a not so good universities, the likelihood of getting into good, for example, companies is very low, Mr. Speaker. Or if you are not so good looking, you cannot marry the one who wants you. Because we think that in terms of, especially in the case of marriage, we think the sexual desire or we think the attraction towards physical appearance is something crucially important which can never ever be removed. We think, therefore, what they're doing is pushing the burden toward the future children, not the current children. And we clearly see that problem. As long as they support the ability criteria, they have to support our side as well. And secondly, they talked about how, okay, so people go on to excessive diet or they're going to, excessively damage their body because of this education. But we think that's what is occurring in the status quo, in the United States. A lot of people are becoming anorexic because of the excessive diet. We think under our paradigm, it's much better. Why is that? Because we think there's going to be guidelines created for the teachers to teach how to, for example, do a healthy way of dieting rather than just, fasting yourself and dying out. And we think these kind of methods or you are going to teach how to make yourself look good better rather than doing excessive cosmetic surgery and those kind of things. So in terms of the health of children, our side has more advantage. So moving on to our first issue, why the most vulnerable people is going to be saved by taking this motion. We think the unique role of public education is to protect the most vulnerable people in the society who couldn't choose the home background or the family background. The reason why we think no matter which place you're born in, we think you have the right to maximize choices as much as possible. That's the reason why public school is for the most vulnerable people, like the poor people. And we think, therefore, this sort of education should exist for the people who are not so good looking in board. So we think their assumption is that beauty is not something that can be changed. But we think it's false because if you are, for example, if you eat healthy food since your childhood, it is severely unlikely that you are going to be obese in the future. If you, for example, learn to how to cosmetic, good, for example, you learn how to, for example, how drinking milk is better to, increase your height, we think the likelihood of a higher height is going to be much better under our paradigm. Therefore, we think, and especially, we think if you learn how to, make yourself look better with, for example, fashion or cosmetics goods, we think people should do it earlier because you get this custom of making up in the morning, and this kind of custom is something that is difficult to nurture if you want to become an adult. And why under the status quo is a problem is because if you are children and if you are not so good looking, it is difficult for you when you are children to notice the importance of, for example, eating healthy food, or it is difficult for you to recognize the importance of those stuff. Why is that? Opening opposition said children are more conscious towards beauty, but we think it's not the case. Why? Because we think when you're children, the difference between the male and female is quite blurred, right? You're being put into, for example, same room to get changes and stuff like that. So once you become an adult, for example, 20 years old, the time you become a mature, for example, male or female, and that's the time you recognize the importance of having a better looking and those kind of things. That's why we think when you're a child and when you do no education to children, you don't do this effort to make yourself a little bit better than the status quo. And when you once become an adult, you are going to be in despair. You're going to recognize, I should have ate more healthier food. The reason why I'm doing diet because we think for example, cells are learned, for example, that we need more calories and stuff like that. So we think your body is made in that way in the childhood, and we think it's a problem. And secondly, we think by taking this proposal, we think we can announce that beauty is something that you can achieve by effort. It's not a born gift. We think the status quo problem is that people think the beautiful people are innately superior to your own self. I don't feel like I'm innately superior to others because I'm not so good looking, but we think if this motion is taken, I'm going to think, okay, if I earn money and if I do better, I can achieve this beauty. This is something extremely easy, not something special. I'm not an inferior person from born. We think this kind of norm should be created, forming on, yes, closing.
Do you admit that when we say you will become more beautiful in some way, the action would proceed to one direction?
We think action is already proceeding to one direction, already in the status quo, just like they said, natural incentive to become beautiful, etc. And thirdly, we think the market to, polish your own beauty, even if you know you're not so beautiful inborn, we think the market or technology or cosmetic goods to make yourself look better is going to be increased massively under our paradigm, because we think the consensus in this debate that more people will be likely to invest money into those, into polishing your appearance, and that means the demand for these products are going to increase. We think the quality is going to be diversified, it's going to be much better. And second substantive, why those people who choose not to invest is going to be better off under our paradigm. So after that, the open opposites who want to protect are people who choose not to invest money into the beauty. But we think under our paradigm it's better. Why is that? Because you can recognize at the early stage that you have to improve other qualities of your own self. Because you think that, okay, I decided not to, for example, opt into, for example, choosing beauty as the way of living. You're going to for example, study harder because you recognize the importance of beauty already. So you're going to study harder than right now. We think it's better than their paradigm in which, for example, the people, although you don't recognize that beauty is important when you're in childhood and you play with those beautiful girls, the beautiful friends, but you don't recognize the importance of beauty, or the fact that you don't have this important factor of beauty is going to be recognized at an early stage. Therefore, you don't study hard, and in the job interview, when you're in marriage, you recognize that you don't have any qualities to, for example, show off. And this is much more problematic than early noticing and early preparation for polishing your own beauty is much better. And for all these reasons, we're extremely proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duffman. I'd like to welcome the member of the opposition.
The debate had proceeded by having one assumption to say, education is a tool for people to have a social success. Educational success is measured when individuals have successfully climbed a social ladder. Those sort of assumption was underpinned on this debate in opening opposition as well as opening government and closing government as well. We have a slightly different nuance but important difference. We are going to extend the debate in two ways. First, I'm going to characterize the concept of beauty to be pursued in the real world and how people would pursue the beauty in this side of the house. And we think that's exceedingly damaging, which I'm going to explain in my second point, the thing in which education should respect. Closing opposition would contend, education should respect individuality, difference of individuality, and we think that but the thing in which individual education should proceed is success. The measure of education is success only insofar as those kind of educational opportunity is leading to diversified individuality, because individual life is different and we can't impose one single goal for each individual, and we think for this goal, we think this policy is damaging. Before that, I want to give independent rebuttal to opening government and just closing proposition. Firstly, they talk about how, as a model in which I want to offer a clarification to Kengo. They said, beauty is one of the metrics And also, also respect academic ability, physical like strength, for example, is also one of the ability measure to measure success within society. But their model prioritize some beauty as they explicitly argued. What's the point? When they recognize other values is important, but they prioritize these kind of one specific measure to begin with. It was non-contentious and was irrelevant to debate to begin with. No thanks. Second, in terms of Kengo's point, job hunting, for example, is going to be relevant to beauty, for example. I think in terms of job hunting, compulsory education should not necessarily have to intervene into those occasions, because having experience of job hunting through rumors, experience of job hunting, the people would realize, maybe beauty is maybe important for individual people. So their policy do not nothing to solve the problem. And also, CG told us how they have a notion, they want to pursue a notion, beauty can change. That my extension is going to be clashing, so wait for that. Second point is about they will change the notion that beauty, to change, beauty can be changed is important, because after such norms prevail, people can be confident about themselves after they have tried many things for themselves. But that is not the case. Even if I dress gorgeously for some reason, if I look Ryasufumi, for example, I feel massive inferiority, because I feel that, because even if I've tried many things, I get a complete inferiority to Yasufumi every time I have a competition. That's precisely because there is a single direction for pursuing a beauty. That's my extension. First, characterization as well as concept of beauty in real world. So, OJ has set up the debate by saying, people would pursue beauty through these kind of things. Reading magazine, hairstyle, for example, and also in the notion that, for example, boldness is something unbeauty in Japanese society. I'm sorry for some people. And also, thinness is something should be more beautiful than that of happiness, for example, which was in the notion prevailed in society, which have a spectrum or single direction, or which side of something is more beautiful or not. And furthermore, in terms of practicality of pursuing the beauty, for example, there's a product which lessens acne or pimple, for example, but there's no product which increases your acne, for example, pimples, so sort of thing. And also, dentists would straight your teeth alignment, but not make your teeth alignment zigzag, Mr. Speaker. And furthermore, cheeks, for example, there's no blue lipsticks, but there's a red-colored lipsticks in order to show beautifulness, for example. Right? In this occasion, Mr. Speaker, there's no variety of people pursuing their beautiness, Mr. Speaker, in this occasion. I think it is going to be damaging and going to be explained in my second consultant. No thanks, not from OG. And also, what is crucially important, it is different, Mr. Speaker, with what kind of thing in which current status quo is actively promoting as a kind of material in which people, like students, should invest themselves as educational form. This is going to be my second point, the thing in which education respects, which is the respect of individuality as well as differences. And we think what kind of thing in which we can support and what's the clear distinction between their side of the house. So, we think education is important only insofar as it contributes to flourish the variety within society, the kind of thing which contributes to flourish the individuality as diversity. So kind of specific here, the kind of content is going to be explained in my later parts. Fumiko.
So when children are taught at schools, you're not taught to become an Einstein, but you're taught to study harder. Why is it bad for us to polish yourself? Because we're not saying that you're ugly or your current appearance is bad.
That's going to be my extension, like prove my extension. So what kind of thing in which schools is now teaching? School do not necessarily teach just make an effort, those kind of simple message. But they have a specific content in which it seems to be beneficial to children. For example, having an offer for basic grammar, basic calculation ability, the knowledge for individual to have the further academic inquiry, physical health, which contributes to further choice within sports, for example, ability to have a musical literature, for example, in order for people to have a choice within the variety of music industry, art industry, those sort of things. Having this basic ability which offers individual to have a journey of their life, because we think life should not move to a single goal. Take note, Mr. Speaker, basic knowledge, for example, learning English, not leads to a single direction. For example, I can learn English, then student A can go to read an English comic. Student B can go and read an English novel. C can read an English academic magazine, for example, which even with a specific content, as well as with the advice of education, people can have a different direction of the choices. But what they would perceive in this real world is with that advice, with that imposement from education, with regards to concept of pursuing beauty, it coerces people to opt in and pursue something more single, which damages diversity. And I think it's exceedingly damaging because diversity is important because people are born differently but equally. So if we regard each individual person as equal person, we should respect that diversity. Such normative message is damaging, and with that, I oppose.
As something of verb opposition, I'd like to talk on the government way.
私じゃないから。編集ないから。
Sure, we don't think appearance is more important than other abilities for individual to succeed in society. We say both appearance and other abilities are important and actually evaluated in a society in such a. Even though they try to say appearance is less important compared to other abilities, we have to recognize the fact that society evaluates the beauty. Society evaluates the appearance of individual. That's why in such a, we have to sponsor the children to make a better strategy to live a better life. For example, if you have an inferiority in the beauty, you have to make effort in other places. We have to provide better choices or better information for children to live a better life. We told you in both scenarios, which is to invest in the appearance or not to invest in the appearance, we think our policy will provide the better choices or better opportunities to make a choice, which is very important principle of education. They say the education have to counter the norm that beauty is evaluated. When you take that stance, you have to prove why they can actually change the norm in the society, and actually children will not care the beauty, or society will not care the beauty, which will be compatible for the adults and children to live in the society. And also they have to talk about the norm to respect the physical appearance is so bad that we have to criticize. We say it's okay to evaluate the appearance as one of the abilities that individuals have. And we say when the government shouldn't decide which value is more important for the society, we have to provide the better information. Maybe you might be evaluated by the appearance, you might be evaluated by the academic ability. That's why we have to inform the children in order to make a better strategy to live in a society. I will tell you two things in my speech. Firstly, I will tell you the scenario in which the children will invest in their beauty, how that will be better investment or better effort for children to live a better life. And secondly, even though they're the ugly or who cannot change the society, even if they cannot change that kind of appearance, it will be much better in outside the house. Before that, some minor rebuttals to the closing opposition. First of all, they told us that job hunting is not the issue which should be educated in the public education. Their analysis contradicts the current contents of education. We tell you the contents which might be necessary in the society, math or English, that might be not used in the actual society, but we think it's sometimes necessary for children and crucially necessary for children to have after you go out of society. That's why we educate these kind of materials in the early period. And also they told us that Fujita have to feel the inferiority to Tozuka because we care the beauty we have to care the beauty in outside the house. But first of all, it's a status quo message. We have to care the Tozuka's beauty and Fujita's beauty in the current status quo because there is a norm that beauty is very important. The beauty is one of the aspects individual have. Second of all, Mr. Chair, in outside the house, it's much better to feel satisfied for the Fujita, because the Fujita can know how you can be like a Tozuka by the education to encourage the children to invest in the beauty, etc. That's why you think if you feel inferiority to the Tozuka, you have to inform that Fujita to improve the appearance of Fujita. We think it might be better. And last of all, in the last moment of Fujita's speech, they are talking about beauty is inevitably pursued to the one direction. That's why it's bad. We say, it's true, we have to pursue the one direction to the beauty. It's not to the ugly, actually. But we say we have variety of the beauty in our society. There are the people like Horita Maki, but there are another kind of dummies beauty, those kind of diverse beauty actually existing in the society. That's why maybe there's a one direction to be beautiful, but the content of beauty is so diverse and different for the individual. We think it's not so problematic. And also, it's applicable for the other education to be intelligent. It's the one direction to be intelligent. No one says you have to be stupid, you have to not be intelligent. But there's a variety kind of the intelligence in the actual society. That's why we say it's better for you to be intelligent, but you can pursue the better way of intelligence or better way of the making decisions. So moving to my summary, but before that, yes.
Okay, so children have no incentive to naturally study because it's boring and children's society is not based on that. But children's society is based on beauty, therefore they have a natural incentive. What is the necessity of parents to also force children to become beautiful?
It's not so different for the demand to be intelligent and beauty. Even though we don't tell the intelligence is very important, we can recognize the intelligence will be evaluated in the actual society. We don't think there's such kind of difference as the creator told us. So moving to my summary. First of all, the scenario to invest in the society. My partner already told you the variety of the reasonings why investment will be better. First of all, we told you how it's sometimes almost irreversible choices for children not to invest the beauty to actually beauty of society. You cannot fix the obesity so easily if you don't invest in the beauty in the beginning of your life. And also we told you how the accessibility to better appearance will increase in outside the house because there's a more demand for the people to be beautiful. As a market mechanism, more companies will try to provide the effective method to improve your beauty. We think that's much better for the people who want to invest in the beauty. And also we told you how that kind of method to be beautiful in the current status quo. For example, cosmetic-based surgery is currently stigmatized misnature. We think that kind of method to improve your beauty by the money will be respected in outside the house. And the ugly want to improve the beauty. We can provide better choices for them to improve even by cosmetic surgery. We think it's good. And also we told you how it's better, we can provide a better way or healthy way to improve the appearance. We can guide children how to improve the life. You don't have to do the excessive diet. We can tell you how the improvement will be done in outside the house. So lastly, that scenario not to invest in the beauty. The fact that we have to recognize is even though you can't improve your beauty by the reasoning of the opposition, that there's an unchangeable fact that your beauty will be evaluated in outside the house. If you notice your children doesn't study so much, children think it's okay to be lazy, it's okay not to study. But when your friend is very handsome, your friends will be more evaluated in society. If we tell the children to invest the beauty, you can recognize you're some kind of inferiority in the beauty. That's why you have to make the effort in other places, for example, academic ability. We think our policy will make the children better prepared for after going to the society. We can provide the other method to be evaluated outside of the house. We think that's why the education provide those things. We think education, we cannot make the education proper to every single child who has different capacity, who has different value. But we can say the more number of children have a better life in outside of the house. We think what the education should do. In those reasons, we are extremely difficult.
Bastante cabrona a finer opposition.
university actually cherish the diversity of in the life. That's why we support education actually teach English. We should actively encourage teach English, because by doing so, we can also support some translator. We also can support the tour conductor as the way of choice. But as long as we support, encourage, invest in beauty, this direction have to be one direction. At this point, Mr. Speaker, we have to recognize this education actually minimize, actually make one direction. This is the beauty, this is not beauty. And at this point, you actually decreasing the people's choice in the life. We have to recognize this point. In the status quo, probably some people say Fujita is a cool guy and Yasufumi is also a cool guy. But in their side of the house, because actively encourage, invest in to following the beauty, and the second stance, people actually follow the Yasufumi is absolutely beauty. So under the second stance, the Fujita cannot be evaluated. This is a program, this is actively, obviously incompatible what education should be. That's why we oppose this motion. I will explain two points in my speech. Firstly, let's examine how this encouragement made actually one direction in terms of educational purpose. Secondly, I will examine which side of the house can protect in better way the for bad appearance the people, which actually all government sides stick to this point. So we say at the end of the day, in our side of the house, we can save this bad appearance people. So all of that will be integrated into my point. No, thank you. So first and foremost, so we have to recognize what kind of things happen in their side of the house. We have to recognize this debate is not about teach importance of beauty. We actually encourage students to invest in this beauty. What kind of reaction will happen from the children? Probably your parents say, "Oh, you should read this magazine. This magazine actually follow trend. This magazine show what the beauty that it does exist within the society." So under that circumstance, probably when you are a junior high school student, you actually blindly follow what textbooks say. The English textbooks say you have to learn 고W1H. Under that circumstance, you actually blindly learn that. You don't have any intention to doubt that. In their side of us, as long as they actually encourage, invest into reading this textbook, to actually following, to imitate this popular hairstyle, that these children have blindly accept this standard. And in that circumstance, in their side of the house, that they actually face the homogenization of this beauty. This is the program as education. This is the first condition coming from Fujita, but unfortunately, complete no response from the previous speaker. So, having said that, Mr. Speaker, which side of the house can protect this bad appearance space in better way? But before that closing.
So even though we actively encourage children to study every single subject, children go into different directions like math or English. In the same way, don't you think even if we encourage children to polish their beauty, some will not and some will do? So
please listen my introduction. After you learn this English, at the end of the day, you can use the English matter to actually become translator, to become tour conductor. But Mr. Speaker, as long as we are talking about beauty, they say the people evaluate people, sometimes people evaluate people based on beauty. But Mr. Speaker, the beautiness is actually in their side of the house homogenized. In their side of the house, they evaluate this beautiness by one standard. Education actually makes this the circumstance. This is a program, Mr. Speaker. This is a nice introduction into my second point. How in the side of house this bad appearance persons have to face more as a harsher circumstance. In the status quo, because Eto can actually be hired by McKinsey, that this fact shows you that there is many diversity in terms of appearance. Eto Kun's appearance is suitable for McKinsey. So because even like me, I also get some kind of job, but I'm not good cool guy. Under that circumstance, I can be hired by the corporation. But in their side of the house, what would happen? For these people, as I said before, as long as we encourage the people to invest in, why the children actually actively doubting on this beauty coming from trend, coming from mainstream society. And the circumstance in your side of the house, every person has more difficulty to be hired by the corporation and so forth. This is the exclusive reason which we oppose.
Say English can be used as a job choice, but also beauty can be used to be model, to be actors. Why it's different?
So, I continuously say, in your side of the house, there is a one particular, the one the good models that exist, that because the people blindly believe that this is the kind of ideal, the form of education. In that circumstance, if in the status quo, some, for example, Horikita Maki can be moderate, but at the same time, so also there are some different person like, for example, Todayaka can be moderate, but their appearance is different from the person to person. But we actually support, we actually enjoy this diversity within that sphere. But in your side of the house, as long as in educational matter, we encourage invest in that. In their side of the house, probably Horikita Maki can do that. But in their side of the house, Todayaka cannot do that. These kind of things will happen. In their side of the house, at the end of this form of education to minimize this choice of the people. This is the harm which we constantly provide you. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let's examine contention coming from opening the government. Opening government, closing government. The closing government said the people actually made effort in order to make beauty. But Mr. Speaker, when you actually learn English at elementary school, at junior high school, when you study the math at junior high school, are you so serious? So as long as we are talking about this educational matter, even I encourage to actively encourage to invest in do that. And that second, as long as we are talking about children, as long as talking about with the educational matter, this kind of actually the standardization is inevitable because at the end of the day, children has less intention to doubt on this characterization. So which actually my partner's extension but no English and comparatively speaking, so we can say this but appearance guy. Obviously we took this bait. We oppose.